I had two things in mind that I wanted to accomplish with you all this weekend. One of those was going to be a comprehensive look at the economy, where things are going, in my humble opinion, where the stock market might be going in relationship to that economic growth, or not. And I accomplished that, I believe, with the Tom Lee video this morning, which if you still haven't seen it, I'm going to recommend it yet again. And I'll put the card up at the end yet again, because it was a very, very good, complete, thorough analysis that was done by Tom Lee and the rest of the people on that panel, but which, of course, I added my thoughts to, which made it even, well, hopefully better. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to accomplish was kind of the same thing. I was hoping to maybe do a comprehensive analysis of the whole world of AI, Tesla's piece in that world of AI, how Tesla is progressing along the progress to progressing along to the progress, how Elon and Tesla are heading towards being the leaders pretty well across the board in everything related to AI, which is going to make a whole bunch of really, really big companies. And the one you're most interested in, of course, is Tesla, which will clearly, in my opinion, be the biggest company in the world. So what we want to do right now is take a look at a Morgan Stanley video that I thought did a pretty darn good job of accomplishing my task, except that it only got maybe a B with regard to execution. I mean, the idea was really good, but the execution was only a B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to fill in the blanks. As I was watching it, I thought, oh, if they'd only said this, or what if they added that? So that's what I'm going to do, and hopefully it's useful to you. Let me know in the comments below. If you want to hit like right now, that'd be great. If you want to hit subscribe, if you've never subscribed, my question is why? And then hitting notify, of course, keeps you informed of the 3 videos that I do almost every single day. And it's a rare time when I don't do 3, and I've even done 4 a day or 2. All right, let's jump right in and let's take a look at what Morgan Stanley had to say on this subject.
In 1995, astronomer and planetary scientist Carl Sagan made a disturbing prophecy in his book, The Demon-Haunted World, about the future of the United States, where nearly all of its manufacturing industries had slipped away to other countries, leading to adverse geopolitical and societal outcomes. AI is all around us. AI listens to you. AI sees your face and body. AI knows where you are right now, training the next chatbot. AI can read, AI can write, AI can talk, AI can make a picture of cats playing poker, but AI rarely ever actually moves. In nature, motility is an organism's ability to move independently under its own power. According to fossil records, the earliest evidence of motility on Earth traces back to bacterial flagella in the Precambrian era. The lines between mobile device and robot are starting to blur. A new Cambrian explosion of organisms is dawning. AI's about to get physical.
All right, so that was a very, very long way around. And see, this is just kind of an example of how this could have been just a tad better. He says, well, the factory, Carl Sagan had this dystopian theory about how all of the factories would go away in the United States. And of course, he turned out to be at least partially right. We've definitely eliminated a tremendous amount of our capacity to make things in the United States, and we've given those away, that capacity, to other countries around the world, which is exactly what Trump is trying to rectify right now. And it's, interestingly how quickly some of that might take place. But what his point, I think, is he's trying to make, which makes it a little bit, it kind of disguises it with a whole bunch of stuff in between, is the world of AI, which right now we think of it more in terms of the digital side of it, is about to move into the robotics, into humanoids, but also into other forms of robotics, like obviously cars that drive themselves. And so this is what I think he was trying to accomplish in that opening segment.
As software becomes agentic, robots become agents. Electric machines are the corporeal sockets for the AI brain. Any machine that can be automated will be automated, maybe even including you. If you solve for autonomy for cars, you solve autonomy for everything.
All right. So if you solve autonomy for cars, you solve autonomy for everything. I just don't think this is true. He doesn't go into any explanation at all that I can recall, but I think his idea is that because of a car is holding passengers going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour and in traffic with other vehicles that can crash together and cause death or serious injury, that there has to be a tremendous amount of sophistication with regard to the AI that is causing those cars to drive and to drive safely. So then the suggestion there would be, well, if you've done that, then you've got it all solved for humanoid robots or for robots that do things on factory floors. I don't think that's necessarily true. I'm not sure that he fully understands that, the idea of kind of the AGI or the, automating of the physical world or automating things that have to move in a physical world is much more difficult when you don't have roads and when you only have three things that have to be changed, which are the gas pedal or the energy pedal, the steering wheel, and the blinker. That's about it. So I guess the brake. So you have four things that have to be moved, whereas with robots you have all the different things that have to be moved, and the world that the robot, any kind of autonomous robot, lives in is much more complex than just roads and road systems. So let's go on from here.
A humanoid robot is just one of thousands of form factors of embodied AI. A broad definition, any machine that collects photons, perceives the world around it, learns, navigates, or manipulates three-dimensional space. Embodied AI and national security are inextricably linked through dual purpose. Embodied AI lends itself to natural monopolies and utility networks across decatrillion-dollar TAMs, or total addressable markets.
So I wish he had, and I don't think he ever does. That's why I'm going to break in here again. I wish he had talked about some of the actual products that are the most likely. We can think of the easy ones, the cars and the humanoids and the drones. The drones can be underwater or not. They can be, vehicles like the vehicles that are used for farming or for construction. They can be airplanes. So we can think of a lot of them, but I was hoping maybe he would dig in a little deeper and suggest even more things that move that can be automated. That would have made, I think, a little more interesting.
It's December 31st, 1879. Thomas Edison makes the first public demonstration of his incandescent light bulb. The incredulous crowd laughs and asks, how could people buy light bulbs if they can't afford electricity? Edison responds, we will make electricity so cheap that only the rich burn candles. This is Fifth Avenue, New York City, Easter Sunday, 1900. Spot the car. Here. This is the same street in 1913. Spot the horse. Here. Between 1485 and 1490.
So he keeps throwing up these little quick snippets of ideas without giving them any context. So clearly we've had, inventive situations throughout history. The electric light, starts off as a bulb and people don't understand how it's going to work. We have the vehicle, horses providing, almost all transportation. At one point, cars 13 years later doing that same work. He's going to talk about Leonardo da Vinci, but I think contextually, I think what he's trying to say is we're sitting here at the beginning of another one of these kinds of ages where autonomous vehicles and humanoids in particular are going to really dramatically change everything.
An Italian polymath of the High Renaissance made some sketches in its Codex Atlanticus of some fantastical machines. Over 400 years later, in 1903, two brothers from Dayton, Ohio, achieved first flight over the sand dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. By 1914, we have the first commercial airline flights between St. Petersburg and Tampa. Fast forward to 1967, the Boeing 737 is introduced into service. Nearly 60 years later, we have a plane so similar in design, they didn't even bother changing the name. From this to this is innovation. Da Vinci would be impressed. But from this to this, I think Leo and the Wright brothers would be super disappointed.
So now I'm going to just take exception to what he said there. I think this is very, okay, could we have something more sophisticated than we have? But during that time period, a tremendous amount of things happened with regard to air transportation in terms of safety, in terms of the number of people that could be carried, in terms of the cost per person to transport people. Yeah, there hasn't been any disruptive element in jet transportation since, but that's not what he said. And I just, again, it could have been a little better explanation here, but it's it's setting himself up to provide maybe a little bit more interesting things coming up. Let's see.
Let's draw a simple two-axis chart together. In the y-axis, we have the knowledge economy, the economy of bits and bytes. In the x-axis, we have the physical economy, the economy of atoms and photons. AI is well on its way to consuming the knowledge economy, moving rapidly up the y-axis, disrupting occupations such as writing, accounting, tax, legal, CRM, and equity research analysts. But what happens when all the digital data is captured and trained? When everyone has the same compute? How will the LLMs differentiate themselves? We'll need to move to the right into the physical economy. But even with unlimited quantum compute, you can't train a vision language actuation model without vision data. The race for photons has begun. But first, let's talk about fat tuna. Imagine you're on a remote island looking out to sea. 3 miles offshore is a plump, 600-pound bluefin tuna hunting for squid. You have no boat and no fishing tackle. How much is that uncatchable tuna worth to you? 0. Now imagine you have a boat, fishing tackle, and the latest generation fish finder. What's that tuna worth now? In 2019, a 612-pound bluefin tuna fetched $3.1 million in a Tokyo auction. Now let's turn to vision data. What's the world's visual data worth if you have no way of collecting it? 0. Now imagine you have the ability to collect and process yottaflops and yottaflops of data. What's that data worth now? More than 0? Biology is hyper efficient. The world is full of creatures doing the greatest amount of work using the least amount of energy, subject to its environmental constraints. Take the example of the humble Drosophila. Just look at that punum. Now, these creatures are really, really good at navigating and orienting in flight. Are fruit flies super intelligent? Well, the fruit fly's brain is the size of a poppy seed. So compared to a sponge, which has no brain, the fruit fly is highly intelligent. Now, I'm no insectologist, but poppy seed brain beats no brain every time. Scientists think the secret to the Drosophila's aeronautic abilities has something to do with these things. 2 enormous compound eyes that are bigger than its entire head, each featuring around 400 hexagonal ommatidia. These insect lenses act as tiny computers. Light comes into the lens, which does a calculation, pre-processing the data before entering its brain. Again, folks, we're talking poppy seed brain, not sesame seed. Lenses are amazing computers that don't use any of the fly's energy, and they don't make mistakes. Hardware like this is the compounding product of Darwinian forces of biological survival, mutation, and procreation over hundreds of millions of years. But Tesla and Google don't have hundreds of millions of years to solve autonomy. They need tools that can simulate billions or septillions of years in just a few days to get those Darwinian forces moving a little bit faster. An NBA point guard steps up to the free throw line for a foul shot. He takes 3 dribbles and closes his eyes, imagining the perfect path of the ball right into the hoop. Swish. That shot never happened. It's all in his mind. When a US Open champion imagines a perfect serve, didn't happen. A Premier League star imagining a penalty kick, it didn't physically happen. But when a robot dreams in simulation, it does so in a hyper-realistic digital twin, complete with physics engines to replicate the laws of motion, thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, and the behavior of light, as if it actually happened. As the robots collect more data, the sim-to-real gap continually narrows. When you're driving a Tesla, you're not just driving in physical space, you're also playing a video game, feeding data into the simulated world to train Tesla's latest FSD model. When you wear Meta glasses, you are teaching the robot model how to play piano, knit a sweater, pour coffee, or take out the garbage.
Once again, I think that this analysis was a little bit thin. So simulation, he makes the gathering of the data he seems to be trying to tell us that the gathering of the data is like playing a video game, which is somehow the simulation, as opposed to the simulations are in fact created. If you're watching any of the things that are taking place on X right now, where Elon is explaining about the game capabilities, etc., these simulated worlds that are available. If you've been paying any attention for the last year and a half, we've seen the simulated worlds that Tesla has been creating for the cars to drive in. And by creating lots and lots of simulations, you can get somewhere close to the same value that you can by having a vehicle out in the real world, doing edge cases and seeing different kinds of environments. Some people say that the simulations could eventually be as good or better than the real world, but for now, at least, real world data seems to be slightly more important than simulation data. And then he quickly switches and calls it, SIMS, which not everybody's going to understand, but basically that's what he was talking about, was simulated data, and he doesn't make the transition very smoothly. Maybe for you got it, but I just wanted to be able to kind of explain what we're doing. We grab data in the real world, we take the data, we put it into the computers, and then we are able to create these simulated worlds, which then provide thousands or millions even of simulated examples, which the cars can then in simulation can drive into these sim worlds, which provide them experience as if it was real. We do the same thing by imagining multiple different futures. Let's say that we're thinking about crossing a creek, and there's 3 rocks, and there's a log, and then there's the distance of the how wide the creek is. We look at the rocks and we say, does that make sense? And we simulate in our brain what it might be like to move across those rocks. We simulate what it might be to go across that log, and then we simulate whether or not we might just be able to leap over, which one of those would be fastest, which one is the least likely to put us in the drink, and which one of those might be more dangerous even in terms of just slipping and hurting ourselves, even if we stay dry. So we simulate those things in our brain, and that's what he was trying to say with the basketball and the tennis serve. Again, a little not as well as I would have liked.
Think of a timeline of the history of the modern internet from 1995 to 2025. Over this 30-year span, what's the most valuable contiguous 5 minutes of data if you're training a large language model? Well, the last 5 minutes of data, only surpassed by the next 5 minutes of data. The power of recency is critical for the predictive capabilities of inference and reinforcement learning. Take this rather simple, if not esoteric, example from my office at Morgan Stanley's headquarters in Midtown Manhattan. If I throw this pink highlighter in the direction of this Ferrari 458 Italia on the coffee table and freeze time just after the highlighter leaves my hand, you will have a very good sense of the trajectory and speed of the highlighter's flight and the sound it makes as it enters the car. You didn't have to travel through time to know that. Your prediction benefits from your experience, you've seen it before, and the context, you're seeing it now. Historic data is important, but those who have the best arising, real-time data have a major advantage. Industrial companies are TAM rich and tech poor. tech companies are tech rich and TAM poor. If you're a $4 trillion market cap company, you're not going to become a $10 trillion company by going after a $50 billion TAM. You got to target that $5 trillion TAM, that $50 trillion TAM. That's not going to happen by getting people to spend one more hour of the day on a smart device. You need to go after the physical markets and grind out those atoms.
So this is a point that I've been making now on the channel for a very, very long time. Other people have made the point as well. I'm not even close to being alone in this. But the reality that he's talking about there, the simulated reality. Anyway, the reality he's talking about there is that the total addressable market for the digital world is limited and also extremely competitive. So you have everybody and their third cousin will eventually be able to give you some kind of a very sophisticated device that will allow you to look up everything there is to know about your medical condition, store your data, everything about you, all the data that your doctors and hospitals have ever done with regard to you will be stored. You'll be able to look up data. You'll be able to look up your symptoms that you're having now and have a conversation, maybe not even physically, but sending the conversation to your doctor and having the doctor and or nurse or other individuals look at your symptoms along with your history. You may not ever have to see the doctor in order to get a diagnosis. So all of that happens in the digital world, but it's very easy to do now, and it's just going to get easier and easier. The difference between that and having the data go into a vehicle, and the vehicle is prepped and capable of driving 70 miles an hour in traffic, or a robot who's capable of walking through a factory, going to its job and doing work, that's not as easy. And therefore, it is not going to be as commoditized as the digital capabilities.
If there's ever a TAM opportunity that could exceed the size of the global economy, embodied AI is the one. Have any of you ridden in a Waymo? They're all over San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix. They just launched in Austin and will soon be running around Atlanta, Miami, and Tokyo. Our internet team forecasts Waymo's fleet to grow from just over 1,500 units today to 23,000 by 2030. Now, why would the world's largest tech search engine company want to get into the autonomous car business? Because the tech is really good, it's getting better all the time, and maybe because they want to spread their bets beyond the core search business. You may soon look back in astonishment that you ever got into a rideshare vehicle with a human driver.
And again, I just think, for another 3 minutes, they could have talked about the potential TAM being in the trillions. They could have talked about Tesla's, competition with Waymo, and they probably end up being the true competitors. I don't know if Uber gets in there, but they could have talked about, Tesla's already having 9 million of these vehicles, out there ready to go, and already driving around Austin. I just think there could have been a little more depth on that particular analysis.
Meta is building some serious capability in AI foundation models, simulation, and metaverse. But it's Meta's efforts in reality labs that could really open up entirely new TAMs and transform the company. What if you had 2 ultra-high definition cameras embedded in a device that you could wear on your face? Imagine those cameras capturing precious real-world data of all the things you do with your hands. Now imagine 20 million of these things in operation within 2 years, nearly 2 times the number of Tesla vehicles on the road. Every Meta Glasses user is training a humanoid avatar iterated in simulation across billions of scenarios in a digital omniverse. The glasses may be stylish, but your face is a battleground.
And again, this is the worst one. This is the one that I was the most disappointed in. There's a hint that somehow the glasses are helping the humanoids to be more effective, but it needed to be said it needed to really be said that this is what he's talking about. So, and you don't need glasses in order to get the humanoids to do what they need to do. and the opportunity to talk in much greater detail about what those humanoid robots might do. The glasses are not the TAM. That is another, iPhone device, and maybe someday it'll be a great device along the levels, along the quantities of smartphones. But it isn't the massive TAM that he's talking about here. The massive TAM is the humanoid. It is the car. It is other devices, again, like drones, airplanes, et cetera, that may be fully autonomous. And they completely left that, aside.
It's no secret Amazon is a major force in AI, but its vertically integrated physical infrastructure uniquely positions the company for pushing the boundaries of robotics. In 2017, Amazon had 5 human workers per robot. In 2024, we estimate Amazon had around 2 human workers per robot. Amazon's highly automated fulfillment center in Shreveport.
And a quick look up on one of those devices that he's on the automated, on the AI side, on the digital side, would have told him that they just basically passed and now have as many robots as they have humans.
Louisiana is being transformed through robotics. Our internet team sees potential for $10 billion of annual savings from robotics and automation. At that scale, Amazon can turn robotics into its own business. AWS started out as an internal efficiency measure before it became nearly 60% of Amazon's operating income. Could we see Amazon bot services in the next few years? Apple may have paused their autonomous car project, but once CarPlay gets access to the video data from inside and outside of the vehicle, then things could get very interesting in Cupertino. The skills transferability for Apple into embodied AI is pretty obvious, but we'll list them anyway. Software, hardware, compute, battery, sensor, infrastructure, supply chain. The car of the future is essentially a giant iPhone wrapped around your body like an immersive IMAX screen covered in carbon fiber reinforced plastic attached to an electronic skateboard driven by a supercomputer. Apple doesn't want to make a car. They want to turn your car into a mobile Apple store.
So, yeah, I suppose maybe, but again, he's missing his own point in that Tesla, okay, they will have apps that apply to the vehicle, but that the real money is in the vehicle.
We're often asked, what is Tesla's secret sauce? What's their moat? Well, it's not really one thing, but the combination of 6 attributes that set Tesla apart from its peers. Let's look at each of them. Data. 7 million cars on the road today, over 100 million by 2040. Robotics. In-house electric motors and actuators. Just the hands of the Optimus have 22 degrees of freedom. Energy. Leading battery storage solutions at scale. AI. A world-class AI team developing FSD, Dojo, and custom silicon. Manufacturing. The most vertically integrated U.S. local-sourced auto company in the world. Space. Redundant, resilient, cyber-secure comms. SpaceX is the transport layer, the connective tissue of the AI ecosystem.
So this is supposed to be about Tesla. I wasn't sure why SpaceX is thrown in there. They are sister companies, and they certainly do things together and help one another. But it was a little odd to me that he threw SpaceX into this environment. I would have said that the moat was Elon Musk. Would have been one of my 6. Maybe that would have been number 6. But in any case, and I could have given him 20 moats if he wished.
So, out of Tesla's dreams, what does Elon Musk think is the single most critical component of the company's moat? Without any doubt, manufacturing. You need to make the probes to collect the data, to improve the probes, to collect more data, to improve the probes. You get the idea here. Data defines the software, software defines the hardware, hardware defines the manufacturing. Elon Musk has used the car industry as a laboratory to develop competency in other areas. The car is to Tesla what the book was to Amazon. There are 1.2 billion cars on Earth, traveling around 12 trillion miles per year. That's 2 light years annually, roughly the distance between the Earth and the sun 130,000 times. With an average occupancy of 1.5 passengers per car and 25 miles an hour, that's 720 billion hours of passenger time, or 82 million years. Humans spend 82 million years of time inside cars every year. 82 million years ago was the late Cretaceous period at the end of the Mesozoic era, the height of the dinosaurs. The Earth looked like this. Bees were pollinating the first flowering plants at the end of the Mesozoic era. Bees. Now, what's the value of an hour of your time? Well, that depends who you ask, but 720 billion hours times anything is a very large number. Then there's safety. With traffic fatalities still on the rise, it seems we're getting dumber faster than the cars are getting smarter. For those of you with a manual transmission, steering wheel having hoopty in the garage, don't sell it. These babies will be cherished by collectors as artisanal classics from an era when humans made the machines and operated the machines. And we still get asked why Ferrari trades at 50 times PE.
So we're going to save time and we're going to save lives by going to autonomy. But there was like, why was that the end of that story? Why wasn't there anything? It kind of was suggesting that there was a large TAM there, but there was nothing, there was no transition. There was no transition to tell us how many cars they think will be autonomous, how people might make decisions with regard to taking an autonomous vehicle versus some other kind of vehicle, how they might decide on which kind of cab to take. Yeah, there was just so much more to say there. If you're going to do it, well, please give me enough content, enough information to make it useful. Well, something is.
The next time you're flying in an airplane on a clear day, take a look down at the Earth. Notice all the roads, the parking lots. See how much of our planet's surface area is devoted to vehicle transport. If AI can drive thousands of times safer than humans in 2 dimensions in the pedestrian-filled chaos of our cities, navigating in 3 dimensions is a walk in the park. Now consider what AI can do for our antiquated air traffic control systems. We estimate the low-altitude economy can eventually surpass the size of the global car market. On our calculations, one eVTOL can generate as much revenue as 10 to 15 Ubers. Advances in e-motors, energy storage, material science, communications, and compute will make flying cars ubiquitous and take some of the stress off the surface of our planet.
So I hadn't heard anybody make such a claim before, so I thought that was one of the more interesting parts of this show. It is hard for me to even slightly, as much as we grew up with the idea of flying cars, and as much as we're starting to get to the place where it is possible, and there's a few of them supposed to be in use. I think some of them are in use as taxis right now, and maybe next year we're going to have a few of them that you can actually purchase. It's really a long way, I think, to anything remotely like a world where flying taxis are the game. Elon, of course, believes that flying taxis are never going to be the game because it's much too difficult. I mean, it's much too, you got noise, you've got potential, obviously accidents at that level are really important. And of course, Elon believes we should be going underground rather than up in the air. So we'll see how that all works out. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
No, not that AWS, this one. Elon Musk recently posted that China makes more drones in a day than the United States makes in a year, and that all future wars will be fought with drones. Let that sink in. With conventional technology, it takes 5 people to operate one $30 million drone. With AI, one person can operate 100 drones. Redundant, resilient, if necessary, attritable, working as a team in an autonomous swarm. Asymmetric capability that may call into question the very nature of defense budgets around the world. When Elijah Otis invented the safety elevator in Yonkers, New York in 1852, the venture capitalists of his time may have struggled to imagine how elevators would change architecture forever. This is New York City before the elevator. This is New York City after the elevator. We think of a reusable rocket as an elevator to space. SpaceX has reduced launch cost 10x while increasing payload capacity 10x, while increasing satellite bandwidth 100x. That's a 10,000x improvement in cost per gigabyte of saleable capacity in orbit. SpaceX is creating an all-new internet that provides downlink connectivity to everything. Every car, every plane, every drone, every ship, every home, every business, every phone. On our model, SpaceX grew revenue by 60% in 2024 to $14 billion, reaching $66 billion by 2030 on our estimates. The company's latest tender offer valued SpaceX at approximately $350 billion, according to PitchBook, making it the most valuable private company in the world.
But what's the point? So once again, it's like, okay, that was a nice factoid, but what about the other applications? What about taking other things into space other than Starlinks? What about Starlink satellites? What about the potential for people being able to communicate from every single place on Earth? What about going to Mars or the moon? What about the idea of city-to-city travel? Through using the spaceflight. What about the Starship and the fact that it will be another maybe 100x reduction in the cost per unit to deliver things to space or to Mars? I mean, it's just like, okay, throw it out there, but let us know, wow, there's way more we could have said, but we're going to do this in really in a very, very short time.
On October 4th, 1957, shortly after 7:28 p.m. Eastern Time, the U.S. Army Signal Corps in New Jersey detected an unusual beep-beep signal at 20 and 40 megahertz. The Sputnik moment meant the Soviets beat the United States in putting a satellite into orbit, creating great anxiety in the Pentagon. In May of 1961, President John F. Kennedy announced the goal of putting a man on the moon and bringing him safely back to Earth by the end of the decade. And in that moment, countless 8-year-olds in the U.S. wanted to become astronauts, and U.S. math and science proficiency skyrocketed. National security is a powerful innovation catalyst. Competition with China is reawakening the Apollo spirit and catalyzing policy and public support for the next era of innovation in the fields of AI, cyber, space, robotics, and quantum. The United States didn't put men on the moon just to collect rocks and do donuts in a lunar rover. They did it because if we didn't do it, someone else would have. A tiger cub learns by watching its mother hunt. A human-shaped robot learns by watching you drink coffee, flip a hamburger, hit a forehand, or miss a 3-foot putt. Why humanoids? Because the world was made for humans by humans, and there are over 8 billion of us to watch and imitate. First adoption, starting now, with the most boring, repetitive, dangerous tasks and environments where you can control for temperature, weather, light, humidity, and where humans are in predictable areas. A manufacturing line, fulfillment center, kitchen, a lithium mine. The TAM, there are nearly 4 billion people in the global workforce with an average annual wage of $10,000. That's a global labor market of $40 trillion. One humanoid leased at $5 an hour can replace 2 human workers making $25 an hour, supporting a net present value of approximately $200,000 per humanoid. The U.S. labor market has 160 million people. Every 1% substitution by humanoid is worth over $300 billion, or around $100 per Tesla share. So how can our clients express a view on the embodied AI theme? Morgan Stanley presents the Humanoid 100, a global mapping of equities across a range of sectors and regions that may have an important role in bringing robots from the lab to your living room. We divide the robot into the brain, body, and integrators, semis, sensors, batteries, actuators, encoders, harmonic reducers, screws, bearings, connectors, magnets, rare earths, and many more. This is manufacturing as a percentage of US GDP since World War II. Just look at this chart. It's not just the magnitude of the decline from nearly 30% to 10%, but the persistent, uninterrupted linearity of the decline decade after decade for 80 years. How much further was this going to continue before we realized that it may have gone a little too far? Morgan Stanley is making a strategic commitment to telling the story of embodied AI, leveraging our platform and relationships to help our clients identify the next crop of multi-generational compounders, transforming industries and creating new markets we believe can exceed the size of today's global GDP. The intersection of AI and the physical economy offers the chance to disprove Carl Sagan's 1995 prophecy. History books will be written about this time and the next 5 or 10 years. The impacts across markets and geopolitics are likely to be profound and far-reaching. The Morgan Stanley research team is here for you as we navigate these consequential times.
All right. So I hope that was interesting to you. It was really interesting to me in the way that it kind of brought everything together. That was kind of my purpose in doing it, was to look at all the different aspects, all the different facets, pull them all together, show where Tesla is basically, according to Morgan Stanley. You saw how many times Tesla came up, even as Google came up here, Meta came up, but they came up once in a while, whereas they obviously saw Tesla as being key right throughout, even going beyond Tesla to the other Elon Musk companies. I think that's, one of the reasons why we are all invested, is we get an opportunity to be a part of that entire Elon Musk ecosystem, if you will. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, please, I'm going to put up 2 cards for you right now. I'm going to put up the card from this morning where there was the Tom Lee video that I think you should, if you haven't seen it and you only have a half an hour, please go look at the Tom Lee video from this morning. Now, if you've got an hour left that, that you can look at 2 things, go look at my regular Monday morning program, which happens on Sunday night. Where I will not only give you some up-to-the-date news for today, but also the things that are going to be happening this week in terms of the economy, the economic numbers that are coming in, where the stock market is headed, and all of that. That would give us everything except the only thing that we haven't talked about in any program today. So I'm putting both of those cards up, but there's one last thing I want to leave you with, and that is, because it's past 5 o'clock now, we're going to go in and we're going to go to Robinhood, and we're going to take a look, and we're going to show that Tesla is up in the overnights right now, another $3.05, sitting at almost 333. So with the markets up slightly, as we mentioned in the previous program, and with this up $3.22, looks like a pretty good day tomorrow. Tom Lee says it's going to be a really good week, with the S&P potentially getting to 6,600 the beginning of a rally taking us to 6,600. Oh, he said by the end of the month, we might be at 6,600 on the S&P. Anyway, that's all I got for you right now. As always, it has been great talking to you.